Next time you drive across a bridge or catch a ferry to another city, you probably don't think twice about it. Maybe you're checking your phone. Maybe you're on your third coffee. Maybe you're just annoyed that the GPS rerouted you again. Now take all of that away. No bridge, no ferry, no life jacket, no Coast Guard, no GPS, no one on Earth who can tell you where you actually are. Suddenly, that stretch of water isn't scenery anymore. It's a wall. For early humans, water wasn't a path. It was the edge of the world. You could walk into a forest. You could climb a mountain. You could even outrun danger across open grassland. But you could not walk into the ocean. The moment you left the shore, there was nothing under your feet. The waves would push you. The wind would shift, turn around, and the land you knew would already be shrinking behind you. That's not travel. That's handing your life over to a few pieces of wood. And yet thousands of years ago, a group of humans stood on a shoreline and made a decision that was both terrifying and world-changing. They decided to leave the land behind. So here's the question. When did humans actually build the first boat? And by the end of this video, you'll understand something bigger than just an old invention. You'll understand how humans learned to work together toward a future that didn't even exist yet, and why that skill still runs underneath almost everything we do today. The honest answer to that first question is messy. The oldest boats we've ever found are only about 10,000 years old, but there's evidence that humans were crossing open sea 50,000 years ago, maybe even 60,000, which means the real first boat is long gone. It's older than any boat we've ever dug up, by tens of thousands of years. It was never put in a museum, never photographed, never signed by its inventor. It was probably just a pile of logs, a few vines, some bark, something that barely refused to sink. Honestly, if you saw it washed up on a beach today, you wouldn't call it a boat. You'd call it wreckage. But to the people who built it, it changed everything. Picture the scene for a second. You're standing on the shore. Behind you, your people. A fire. Children. Trails you know by heart. A forest where you know exactly where to find food. In front of you, water. Water that never stops moving. You don't know how deep it is. You don't know how far it goes. You don't even know if there's land on the other side. Then someone pushes a few logs into the water. They don't sink. And in that moment, humans may have realized something for the very first time. Solid ground isn't the only place you can stand. That sounds simple to you right now, but for that person, standing on that shore, it might have been the single most radical thought of their life. Because building a boat is nothing like building a stone knife. A stone knife solves a problem right in front of you. You need to cut meat. You need to scrape a hide. You need to defend yourself. Fire works the same way. You're cold. You're afraid of the dark. You need to cook. A boat is different. A boat is built for a place you've never been. You don't build a boat because you know what's on the other side. You build it because you believe maybe something is. That's imagination. And it's also an incredibly dangerous bet, which makes you wonder, was the boat the first thing humans ever built purely out of imagination, with no guarantee it would even matter? The first boat almost certainly wasn't the work of one genius with a sudden idea. It was something a group of people slowly figured out together. Maybe it started small, the way a kid tosses a stick in a pond just to watch it float. Except here, the stakes weren't a game. The stakes were survival. Someone noticed a branch floating on water. Someone noticed dry wood floats better than wet wood. Someone tried tying logs together. Someone learned that too loose, it falls apart. Too short, it flips. Too heavy, it sinks. This isn't a romantic story. This is prehistoric engineering, trial and error, with zero safety regulations and absolutely no refunds. And building a boat took a whole team, working together. Here's the real twist. The most impressive thing about the first boat isn't that it floated. It's that it proved humans could already organize themselves around a future that didn't exist yet. That is the core skill behind civilization itself. Imagine first, plan next, take the risk after that, and finally, tie a group of lives together, all at once. You might be wondering, how do we even know ancient humans crossed the ocean? Because there are places on Earth that humans simply could not have reached on foot. Take the ancient landmass that eventually became Australia and New Guinea. During the Ice Age, sea levels were lower. A lot more land was exposed, but that doesn't mean you could walk the whole way there. There were still channels of open water in between, still sea, still a need for something that could float. If just one person accidentally drifted across, that could be luck. But if a whole group arrived, survived, and had children who survived after them, that's not luck anymore. That means they got a lot of things right. They had to bring food, tools, possibly a way to carry fire. They had to know when to leave. They had to understand which way the current would carry them. And they had to trust that the people next to them wouldn't panic and ruin everything halfway through. Don't rush past that last part. It might be the single most important sentence in this whole story. Because in any risky venture, the hardest part was never the tools. The hardest part was convincing other people to take the risk with you. You can imagine there were people who said no. Someone would have said, "Don't go, people die out there." Someone would have said, "We're doing fine, right here." Someone would have said, "There's definitely something terrifying in that water." Honestly, if I'd been there, I might have been one of them. Climbing onto a few logs and paddling into open ocean doesn't sound like a plan. It sounds like giving up. But there must have also been someone looking out at the horizon saying, there might be new prey out there. There might be more plants, fewer predators, a whole stretch of land no one has ever set foot on. That's the strange thing about us. We're afraid of the unknown, but we can't stop wanting to get closer to it. Pause for a second here. Next time you're driving across a bridge in the US or riding a train through an underwater tunnel in the UK, think about this for just a moment. If none of the engineering existed, no insurance, no rescue teams, no weather forecast, would you still cross? That was the exact question early humans were facing, except they didn't have any of those options. No customer service, no recalculating route. All they had were their eyes, their memory, their experience, and a small amount of courage. So the first people to build boats probably weren't the strongest people around. They were probably the best observers. They watched how wood drifted. They watched where birds flew in from. They watched when the tide pulled back. They watched how the wind changed throughout the day. They watched distant clouds, wondering if they meant land was out there. That was the earliest form of navigation knowledge. It wasn't written in books. It was written in memory, in repeated failure. And, in some cases, it was written in the people who never came back. We only see the successes today. Some rafts probably fell apart the second they hit the water. Some people drifted too far and never returned. Some entire groups may have set out and simply never made it to the other side. But it only took one success to crack the world wide open. Water stopped being purely a barrier. Water started becoming a route. Rivers could be crossed. Lakes could be explored. Islands stopped being distant shadows on the horizon. Coastlines stopped being the edge of the map. Before this moment, humans were a species pushed around by their environment. From this moment on, we became a species that chose its own direction. That's the real thing boats changed about us. For the first time, somewhere we can never reach, turned into somewhere we might be able to try. And that same pattern has continued all the way to today. Eventually, we built bigger boats, sails, compasses, harbors, routes across entire oceans. And after that, we built airplanes, we built spacecraft. Here's something worth sitting with. Humans have never actually been safe. We've just kept moving our sense of safety into more and more complicated tools. Leave the safe zone. Step into the unknown. Trust that something we built with our own hands can carry us to the other side. That first boat probably wasn't pretty. It was probably crooked, probably slow. It probably leaked the second someone climbed on. But it represented a massive shift. Humans stopped simply living inside the world. Humans started pushing against its edges. Maybe one early morning, a small group of people actually climbed onto that crude raft. The people left on shore watched them go. The fire was still burning. Children were crying. The water was cold. No one knew if they'd ever see them again. But if they made it, the next morning, they woke up to an entirely new world. That's what the first boat really meant. It wasn't transportation. It was a question. What's out there, past the edge of everything we know? And the strangest part about being human is that this question haunts us, and it also pushes us forward. Today, we don't think about any of this crossing a bridge. We don't think about it boarding a plane. Most of the time, we're just hoping the person next to us doesn't recline their seat too far. But somewhere deep inside you, something ancient probably still remembers that pull. See something far away and want to get closer. See a boundary and want to cross it. See the unknown and ask, what's over there? Maybe what the first boat really left behind wasn't wood, wasn't rope, wasn't even an archaeological site. It was an instinct, a belief that the world is bigger than the piece of land right in front of us. Humans didn't start sailing because we were finally ready. We built boats because we couldn't stand staying on the shore forever. So the greatness of that first boat was never about how far it traveled. It's that it made humans believe, for the very first time, the edge of the world might not be an ending. It might just be where the next journey begins. And maybe that's the harder truth. Every new journey after that first one gets a little easier to forget, because we adjust to new edges faster than we ever expect to. If you enjoyed this look at how ancient humans still shape who we are today, hit like and consider subscribing.